Welcome to the UFC on Fox 14. Gustafsson versus Johnson in Stockholm. Tonight I am joined by two Swedes, Alex and Nadim Kalman of Kimura.se. Nadim's also the star of Sweden's MMA show, the MMA Panel, so we are more than happy to welcome them to MMA Latest News tonight. Boys,
Thank you.
welcome.
Thank you, man. Your enthusiasm is great. I got like hyped for the event. You should do a Bruce Buffer or something, man.
A Buffer 360 on my chair.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, boys, tonight you're here to educate our fans on the stars of the Swedish MMA scene. Alex, do you want to kick us off and tell us who the three guys to look out for in Swedish MMA are?
Swedish MMA. I think we all have a lot of stars, but two stars that is in UFC today is Niklas Bäckström. Unfortunately, he lost his last fight, but he's going to come back strong, and I think it's going to be huge. He's going to reach top 10 for sure. Then also we have fighting on Saturday, Nico Musuke, a really big talent. He only lost to Kelvin Gastelum in the UFC. I have a lot of faith in him, and I think he's a great fighter overall. A guy that is not in the UFC right now, but I think will be, is Fernando Gonzalez.
That doesn't sound like a very Swedish name to me, mate.
No, it's not, but he's totally Swedish. He's trained as all-stars with Gustafsson and Ilir, Latifi, and all the best of Swedish MMA. Last time he fought my trainer and won. So he's a great fighter.
Impressive.
Nadim, what do you think? Do you agree on those, or have you got your own three?
Yeah, I mean that's great picks. I think the obvious one is Niklas Bäckström. As Alex said, he the big rising star. He had a big setback when he lost in October here in the Swedish UFC. But I think also there are two other fighters that you have to mention. We have a upcoming female fighter she's not so upcoming actually. She's the Cage Warriors champ, Pani Kianzad, and she's already ranked the 20 best in the world. So she's already beaten UFC opponents like Milan Dudieva. So she's for sure a future name, and only 23, 24 years old. So the sky's the limit. I think she's 6-0 and unbeaten, and trains out of Rumble Sports in Copenhagen. So she's really somebody to look out for. And she has a great personality too, so make for a great star. And also we have a great fighter who's training out of ATT called Sevan Kakai. He's been close to the UFC. He's been on the Ultimate Fighter and actually lost his fight to get into the house. But he's still making waves in the UFC. He had his debut in Titan Fighting Championship and had a win. So I think he's 12-1 in his official record.
Yeah.
So he's a upcoming star, and I mean he trains at ATT with the best guys in the world, and he's been doing it for a long time. So I mean, you know that he's getting great competition every day.
We heard some rumors that he was actually going to fight in Sweden now, but he didn't get a fight though. He is in Sweden now to coach.
Well, you thought he was going to be on this card this weekend?
Yeah. For sure. He was doing a big push. There was actually a push between. They were trying to call out a Finnish guy. They wanted to have, there's a lot of rivalry between Sweden and Finland, so they were pushing for a fight between two top ranked bantamweights here in Scandinavia.
Awesome. What's the biggest domestic show that you've got in Sweden?
Well, we have a show called Superior Challenge, which they put on, yearly, and it features quite some big names. Last time the main event was Diego Nunez against Joachim Hansen. I mean, these are former UFC and Pride fighters. So
I was just going to ask about Hellboy Hansen, actually.
Yeah,
you've already been to it, so there you go.
Yeah. So it's a big show, and I think the whole scene in Sweden, it has popped off. Of course, the rise of Alexander Gustafsson has not only meant that we have a lot of attention on the UFC, but also the infrastructure. We see more gyms, we see more events. So of course it's been great, and I think, this is starting a generation of Swedish fighters. I think we're going to see a lot more. We already have eight fighters in the UFC today. I think in a couple of years we will add some.
Awesome. I was speaking to Alex the other day, and I was mentioning it's kind of strange how Sweden's managed to bag 2 cards in the space of 3 months when most European countries, if they even get one, gets one a year at best. Do you think this is going to continue, especially if Gus not just keeps going the way he's going, but manages to take the title away from John Jones? Do you think Sweden's going to be a regular place that the UFC visit, maybe several times a year?
I think a lot is going to depend on how the audience is on Saturday. It's a huge arena. It's the biggest one in Europe that UFC had. So I think if it turns out to be a lot of people in the audience, it's for sure going to be rising even more.
Yeah, I mean, Sweden is a market for them, that's obvious. And of course, Alexander is the star. I think that the last event was a bit of a disappointment for the UFC. They had sold out crowds on the first two events. This time they didn't. So I think that they wanted to get back to the market. They realized something, that it's not an MMA bubble yet in Sweden. It's very much an Alex bubble. And they wanted to make sure to put Alex in Sweden. And I think that also this is a big experiment. Can you do a stadium show in Europe? I mean, with all the talk of Conor McGregor and everything else. So this is a big test, as Alex is saying, and it's going to be a great night.
Well, Alex is essentially one fight away from having another title shot, I think, depending on when Jones comes back from his rehab.
Already back.
Yeah.
Properly back. If Conor also wins the title against Aldo in the summer, then we've got two European champions. The UFC then needs to start looking at Europe and forgetting about the pay-per-view issue that they've got by hosting fights in Europe, and actually give MMA fans in Europe some regular, large title fight events. Do you see that happening, or do you think they're just going to keep them in Vegas like they've done with McGregor this time? Because we did think that McGregor was going to Dublin, didn't we, for this fight with Aldo?
Yeah. I think that was also depend on Saturday, because the problem obviously is the time difference. And on Saturday they're gonna hold the event in local time. I think the Alex is gonna fight like 4 a.m. Right?
So that's regular time for the US audience, essentially, isn't it?
Exactly. So I think a lot of things gonna get cleared out after Saturday.
I think also one aspect is, I mean, Dana White mentioned in the pre-fight press conference after the McGregor fight a little bit about the economical issues of having a pay-per-view in Europe. And I think that a fight like Jones-Gustafsson, which is a huge pay-per-view, is something that you wouldn't put in Sweden. But say, for example, that you would have Alex against Glover. It wasn't a pay-per-view fight. I mean, they put that in an arena in Sweden, it was still sell out. So it's always how big is the fight and how much would they lose on pay-per-view. I think that's going to be the big factor.
Which is a shame, really, because we think we'll always miss out, I think. If push comes to shove, they're going to go for a big pay-per-view like they did with Jones Cormier, over selling out Croke Park for Conor McGregor, which the gate that they must have been able to take on something like that, which is 4 or 5 times the average Vegas fight.
Yeah.
It must be huge, but it's their train set. They can do with it what they want.
But he actually, sorry to interrupt you, but he actually mentioned that, and I was thinking the same as you, but he actually said that there is not a big difference. Even if the attendance is greater, it's such a big production cost. So that's the big difference. So they don't make a lot of more money than they would by the attendance in Vegas. And then you cut off what you would lose on pay-per-view. It's not an economical, smart idea.
I also think in somewhere like a Croke Park Stadium, where the top tiers are going to be 150, 200 metres away from the cage, you're not going to even be watching the cage anyway. You're going to be watching it on TV because the action's going to be so small. So you wouldn't be able to charge top whack for a ticket there, whereas Vegas, people are already spending money anyway. The ticket price, they're just high across the board because everyone's got a pretty decent view at somewhere like the MGM. As I was saying, we're here to preview we're here to preview this weekend's card. Let's talk a little bit about the main event. Gus versus Rumble Johnson. How do you see it, Alex?
I feel like it's a tough fight. Johnson looks amazing. He looks really good in his last fights. He's really explosive, but I think Alex is too fast for him, actually. And Alex's stand-up is also ridiculous. So I think it's gonna be Alex gonna get the win, but it's gonna be hard. He's gonna get hit with a lot of shots, I think.
Nadim?
Yeah, I would agree. I see Rumble as an upgraded version of Gus' last opponent, Jimmy Manuwa.
Yeah.
I think he's a bit quicker, he has a bit more power, maybe a few more tools. But honestly, I think Alex is better everywhere. where we really should be worried for Alex is the knockout factor. I mean, Johnson has knockout power, so I would say the first 2 rounds is really critical. But get Johnson tired, and if he keeps distance and circle well, I think this is a easy fight for Alex to win, to be honest.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't be surprised either if he would mix in a couple of takedowns. You know, he's taking John Jones down, he's taking Jimmy Manuwa down, he's taking Shogun down. I wouldn't be surprised to see Rumble Johnson on his back, and I think that's a really smart strategy against a guy who's not famous for his work on the ground, and also a guy who tires quickly.
I agree with the pair of you. I think this is a win for Gus. I don't think it's going to be an easy night's work, not by any stretch of the imagination. But I think when you look at both the fighters and you look at both their skill sets, I just see Gus having more in every single category, apart from perhaps power. And I think he's going to take an easy decision. I think it's not going to be a decision anyone's arguing about. I think it's going to be quite a clear and just victory for Gus. And I think it's going to come by way of decision. I think he's got a chance of getting a sub or maybe a TKO later on. But I'm going to be putting my money on Gustafsson by unanimous decision. Boys, do you want to give your method of victory for the main event?
Yeah, of course. I think either submission. I think Gustafsson is gonna rock him or take him down, and it's gonna be ground and pound, or it's gonna be submission. I think submission.
Late or early?
Gustafsson. It's gonna be in the second round.
Ooh, ballsy. Nadim?
Yeah, I think pretty much the same. I think that he's gonna drop Johnson and finish him on the ground, either with like a rear naked choke or ground and pound. And I'll say a little bit later. I think maybe the third or the fourth round. That's when I see Johnson tiring.
Yeah, I'm thinking fourth or fifth if he's going to get a stoppage, and it'll be something along those lines, some sort of a knockdown, and either ground and pound or one of the basic, rear naked choke's always a good one, or an arm bar. Someone gives up an arm when they want a way out of the fight. And failing that, but I think it's probably going to end up being a decision. But I think he's going to be he's going to put the pressure on throughout, and I think it's still going to be a great fight. I think as much as I see Gus winning it, Rumble's not the sort of guy that's just going to lie down and accept that. So I still think it's going to be a good card, a good main event. The rest of the card's stacked. I'm looking forward to seeing Andy Ogle. He always brings it, and we like to see fighters like that, especially from Britain.
Yeah, sure.
Thanks for joining us, boys.
Thank you.
I hope you both enjoy the fights on Saturday at 4 a.m. Hope you're not sat there yawning.
Of course not.
Thanks for watching MMA Latest News Preview. This is brought to you by DraftKings.com. You can check out their MMA games. I'll throw the link in below. For $2, you can win up to $2,000 if you think you know how this fight's going to go down or this card's going to go down this weekend. So get amongst it and play. Cost you $2. What have you got to lose? Subscribe if you liked what we do. Get your comments in below. Let us know what you want to see from previews going forward. Thanks to my two guests from Sweden. And good night.
Thank you.